Thank you so much for staying with us. Now, let's talk political matters, especially looking at the forthcoming elections. Just 12 days to go. And as political campaigns intensify and the 2023 general elections draw near, there are concerns among stakeholders that the wave of violence could disrupt the process. And in the last few weeks, there has been an unprecedented rise in the number of violent attacks on parties' campaign trains and also on the facilities of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Different groups and observers are calling on political actors to play by the rules of the game. And of course, we will be looking at how violent the whole electioneering process is turning, especially in Nigeria's polity. And joining us to have this conversation is the Labour Party chairman in Edo State. He would be joining us virtually. Thank you for joining us. Good morning.
It's my pleasure being with you this morning. Thank you.
Good to have you on the show. Well, let's look at all of the development coming up, especially as it concerns your party. We know the recent one that happened, the sad incident that happened in Lagos State, where your supporters of the Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi were attacked. And it was said that not less than 4 people were injured in that particular attack. What do you make of all this? Why do we keep having all of these issues, especially when elections are approaching in the country?
Well, that was the most unfortunate development we could see for very good persons in that locality. It's surprising that up to this moment we will not learn how we should behave politically when it comes to protests. This was coming from a group of persons that we don't even know where they came from. It could be the APC or PPP in Lagos because this attitude to be abrasive in terms of politics and the quite associated with this political party who are taking up this far to the doldrums and the attentions and Labour Party to take it off their hands and give Nigeria what they need has been a problem. As you could have seen in Lagos, it is true. But I think the law enforcement agencies should be up to their duty to ensuring that this kind of madness is not allowed to happen again now, during and after the election.
But the question is, were the police authorities, security operators informed before this rally took place?
Well, adequately. How will you expect in such a robust rally it would be organized without having the law enforcement agencies contacted? Of course, the law enforcement and the police all up to it that they were even making prayer arrangements to forestall occurrences like this. Then why it failed is what I don't understand. So if there is a general and open acceptance that they were putting the security in place to ensure that this type of brigades are ward up, then it goes to tell you that yes, there's no way Labour Party could have arranged such a rally without getting the law enforcement agencies involved. They are way adequate.
All right, sir. May I ask you, because recently most of these presidential candidates, if not all of them, signed a peace accord, which means that they're going to maintain peace during and after the election. And we've seen, going by the attack by the hoodlums who attacked the protesters of the Labour Party just on Saturday here, the police spokesperson, the person of Mr. Benjamin Hondein, stated that investigation has commenced, and of course those who are perpetrators of this act will be brought to book. What is the likelihood that this will not be like some of the recent cases where attacks have been made and of course investigation commenced, but eventually we never saw those people brought to book? They were never prosecuted. And of course, what is the indication that after the election we will not see more attacks of this nature, especially with regards to politicians not willing to vacate their seats or using power to retain their seat?
Well, you see, the government led by APC is a disobedient government. It's a disobedient political party that can afford to violate whatever rule is made for the court or anywhere in the world. It's a terrible thing. we are praying that this time around they should be able to bring those compliant to book and ensure that they are accordingly punished. But we fear the fact that if not being responsive, not taking responsibility and acting according to the rule of law and the provisions that are inherent in it, we fear also, like you have already said, that will this not go the way of all the investigation that we have seen? But we pray, and that is why we are prayerful now, that let them have a change of mind today and ensure that when they say, oh, we are going to do this, they truly do it. Otherwise, everyone in Nigeria is becoming helpless, and that is why we have to vehemently inform these people of this country that the only thing we can do is to remove this one for the government and install the government of PDP. That, sorry, please, I mean the government of Labour Party, please. I emphasize Labour Party led by Greg of Obi to change the scenario today. I regret that mistake. PDP will never be again in the annals of the history of Nigeria. We are saying, let us install a government run by Labour Party and led by Peter Greg Obi, so that what is desired by this country can be gotten by the country.
All right, one more question to you, sir. Looking at the situation of things, this is pre-election. What are you advising the security agencies with regards to encouraging and, of course, making voters, people who want to come out to vote on election, they have the confidence that their lives will not be jeopardized, seeing what has just happened a few days back?
Well, my advice to law enforcement agencies is to once again go back to the role of the duty. Go back to what their engagement letter states. That the compromises and all of that can make their position appear as if they are seemingly not doing the right thing. Should be vacated this time around. Let them operate as clearly stated in their letters of engagement, ensuring that the peace in the environment is overhead, ensuring that the violators are brought to book and punished accordingly. In what we are trying to do.
But let's talk about the peace pact, of course, that is usually entered into before elections. How effective do you think it is? Because we know that twice now, the former head of state, General Abubakar, had, brought together these party members to sign a peace pact to ensure that they obey the rule of law and they shun violence towards the elections. But most times, hardly have we had any elections in Nigeria that has been violent-free. Because even the 1993, elections that was adjudged the freest, fairest, most credible election wasn't violent-free. Is it effective, all of those peace pacts? Are you with us? Oh, okay, I think we lost connection with him. But let me bring that question to you. This peace pact that we always sign, the recent one by former head of state, Abubakar, General Abdulsalam Abubakar, we've seen several of that happen.
If it's effective, we will not see the level of violence before, during, and even after elections, though we have not had this election. Because if you look at the letter or the petition Serap wrote to ICC.
Okay, let me stop you there. We'll, of course, continue your thoughts. Yeah, you continue your thoughts. We just want to take a break. We'll be back. Please stay with us. Still focusing on election violence, especially as we look forward to the February 25, March 11 elections coming up shortly. And we still have with us Matthew Oluku right here in the studio, and also Kelly Ogbaloy, Edo State Labour Party Chairman, joining us virtually. Thank you so much for staying with us, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So let's continue with your thoughts on the effectiveness of this peace pact.
Okay, I was trying to say that for me, I don't think it's effective. Looking at the level of violence that have always characterized our election, whether before, during, and after the election. If you look at what transpired in 2011, you understand that so many Nigerians, especially youth corps members, lost their life in the north. It is not something different in other elections. And if you look at the petition that Serap wrote to ICC, where they said about we have recorded currently between 1st of January 2022 to 3rd of February 2023, that we have recorded about 4,000 cases of violence and recorded about 11,000 fatalities. So for me, looking at that figure, I would say the peace pact is not yielding any results.
Let me come to Mr. Kelly Ogbaloy. We know that there have always been peace pacts, you know, signing of some form of document to ensure that these political contestants shun violence before, during, and after election. In fact, the United States and other international economies threaten, you know, not issuing visas to those who do not shun violence. But how effective are all of these threats and peace pacts that are being signed?
Well, like I was saying before the interruption, you see, here and in the government that have been provided for us in Nigeria by the APC, is a government that is generally disobedient government.
You have to mind your language, please. That's still the government in power.
Let me go this way. That what we have is a situation where people will ordinarily not want to obey the rule of law and any element that is human in it. And that is what we are saying. So we ask that we need to make changes where people, will become human beings, and where people will be ready to obey the regulation of the country, the law, and not the rest of it, as compared to what we have currently. And therefore, if there was an arrangement for people to sign into a document to say, well, at so point in time as it is, we'll be peaceful. We're ready to drive the process peacefully. And what we see is that, which is being reported now. So how much have we agreed, to obey our own rules too, as it were? So for me, is that we must begin to prepare for the changes that are to come in February, so that once again in our country we can be compared to others in the international world.
All right, so you understand the fact that that particular attack that we're making reference to was of the opposition party. Is there any way the law guiding election process can restrain individuals who come up as party presidential candidates to sign the peace accord themselves without having it signed by their running mates, so that when issues of this nature happens, we know whom to hold responsible?
Come again. Let me get the crux of the question.
All right. The last attack that we're making reference to, of course, was done by the opposition party.
We don't know that yet.
Obviously. But then, is there any way the law guiding the election process can restrain individuals who are coming up as presidential candidates for their official party to sign the peace accord themselves without having to have it signed by their running mates? So that when issues of this nature comes up, we know who to hold responsible.
But even in this case now, people to be held responsible are clearly there. Somebody signed, first of all, whether it's for on behalf of others, it doesn't really matter. Somebody has signed. So it is not the law this time around. Somebody trying to say, well, my party or whoever is in it will obey the law, will abide by the rules of this game. And right now, that is being broken. So we are not in difficulties in seeing who should be held responsible. Those who signed this one on behalf of whoever should be held responsible. To say, look, you signed this document at a particular time, and if the investigation shows that the current mayhem that is unleashed is coming from your head, and then they begin to talk about it and see who should go for it and who should not go for it. For me, it is not who signs.
Haven't you seen cases where promises are made, especially in their manifestos? The individual who is fronting as the party presidential candidate is denying it, that, well, I never made such promises. Perhaps the party. Could that not also play out in this case where an individual says, well, I didn't sign, my running mate did?
Because we listen to such excuses, and And in Nigeria, most times we look for the most convenient way to lie and evade, responsibility. That is why this is happening. If anyone signs, he signs on behalf of others. And so the collectivities of those who committed the offense, including that same person, should be held responsible. So you cannot therefore say, oh, it is my party that says we will pay 5,000 naira to Nigeria's unemployed. It is not me who said so. So when your party says so, what did you do to it? So for me, these are just logics to dodge being brought to account when we become extremely deficient in our promises and acts.
Let me come quickly to Matthew Oluku. Now, you know that a lot of surveys have been carried out, on the media. We've seen a lot of surveys, and many of them have been kind of in favor of the Labour Party. Do you think that this attack is a reaction to all of those surveys that we've been seeing? We know that these surveys really do not most times affect elections. Even in the United States, we saw the survey that, touted Hillary Clinton as the next president back then when she was contesting with Donald Trump. But in the end, the tides changed. But do you think that perhaps all of this survey pointing towards the Labour Party presidential candidate as the favored candidate for the 2023 elections have anything to do with all of these attacks?
First of all, let me draw attention to the Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump scenario. Don't forget that Hillary Clinton won in the general election. It was the Electoral College that gave Donald Trump the victory.
But the point
that
is
the
still that
process.
he still...
No, it shows that she was a candidate to beat in that election. Now, looking at Nigerian situation and the bill you mentioned, don't forget that before now, there was general speculation, especially among the two major leading political parties, that Labour Party is just on media, that they are not on ground. They talked about structure. When they talk about structure, I'm talking about machineries, party executive from the unit level, world level, local government level, state level, and federal level. Could affect Labour Party lack. And I think they are gradually beginning to see the reality on ground that Labour Party is not just on social media, that in real terms, in reality, they're on ground. So I think that best explains the reason we are seeing the attack. Because if you see the rally of Labour Party in Lagos State, you don't need to doubt whether they're on ground. In spite of the attack, you see the mammoth crowd at TBS. It shows that they're already on ground.
Well, let me bring that same question, direct that same question to you, Mr. Ogbaloy. Do you think that all of these attacks have anything to do with the fact that your candidate has been favored as the most preferred candidate, according to the polls, the surveys that have been carried out? And how do you also suppose that if eventually your candidate wins the day or takes the cake, he would be able to work with the fact that your party may not have all of the structure needed, especially coming from the National Assembly?
Well, the last speaker here has answered that part of the structure, because it is no longer discussing the structure now, since they generally have realized that has failed as a point of discussion. They go into trying to physically attack us. I tell you very clearly that Labour Party and our candidate is the party to beat in this election. And this has been appreciated by all of them, all over there, that they must be looking for new tricks. And yet, you can also say that the new tricks are not working, because this is an idea that has, come up and it has to exist. There's nothing anyone can do to annihilate it as it stands today. And so I have given you basic assurances that the Labour Party and its candidate is not joking. Yes, it's going to be equivalent to do all the changes at once. But I can tell you that as we take over the reins of government, all of these ones will begin to change one after the other. Because the decadence is, as you can see today in the cycle of our country, that in a civilized campaign rally that is happening in a place, some persons just come outrightly to attack it. So how do you explain that? So ours is that please support us, give
Well, you've not paid us for campaign, so we're not giving you the room to do that right now. But let me come to you, Matthew.
I'm assuring you that we will reverse all the bad tendencies in the country, economy, unemployment.
Your candidate has been doing a lot of that, I guess, so we do not want you to do that. So let's come to you. In all of this, how do you think we can move on to elections that would be violent-free? You'd recall that in 2015, it would have been full of a lot of skirmishes, pockets of violence. That was after President Muhammadu Buhari was declared president. If not for the fact that, former President Goodluck Jonathan conceded defeat. How do you think we can move on from all of this violence-infested electioneering year?
I think it's in 2 ways.
Hold on, Mr. Kelly. I'd like to get Mr. Matthews' reaction, then I'll come to you.
I think it's in 2 ways. Locally here in Nigeria, the security agencies have a lot to do. Because the essence of law and prosecution is to act as a deterrent to others. We have a situation where in Lagos, we had in Oshodi one time, the Obi flag boy was attacked. As we speak, I don't think any arrests have been made. I don't think anybody is under prosecution. So if that is the situation, it will burden these miscreants, these hoodlums, to do more. So I'm saying that until you start arresting and prosecuting those who are perpetrating this crime, you will not see an end to it. Then again, the shadow groups or the people who are behind it.
20 seconds, please. We're pressed for time.
Okay. You look at the other angle internationally. I think what Serap said should be the way to go.
Even though we know Serap is always in the news to, for court cases, but we never see the end of it. But let me come to you, Kelly Ogbaloy. Let's get your final thoughts on this.
Yeah, I'm standing by.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's hear your final thoughts.
Yeah, well, it's not good to be in difference to what the last speaker has said. When offenses are committed, and then you have the agencies that should deal with that. They should go and do their job. Those infractions in Lagos have not been arrested up to now. As we speak, although we are promised investigations are on, and as soon as possible, they will find those who did the job, and then they will drop the book. So my final take is that, the law enforcement agencies have been put in place, and they have been directed in their letters of appointment. They should avoid impossible compromises, which are likely to, which are suggestive of why the hoodlums, these bad people, continue to perpetrate their crimes. Because back in their mind is that after all, we can escape the law. So as soon as this one stands upright to ensure that whoever commits, no matter how small the crime is brought to book and punished, then we can move forward. So we hope that they will do this as we are to the elections.
All right, thank you so much for your sterling contribution, Mr. Kelly Ogbaloy, Edo Labour Party Chairman. Thank you for joining us on the show this morning.
It is my pleasure.
We must also appreciate you for your time, Matthew Oluku, Public Affairs Analyst, for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.